Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of At the Table. It's Jackie King. And as always, I'm so pumped that you're joining me for another conversation of women and leadership and how they carry out the mission of God for the kingdom of God. And I know in this second season, we have been kind of walking through my book, The Calling of Eve, and getting to share the stories of women all across the planet that are making a difference, that are using their gifts and their talents. And so you should have already read chapter 9 on Jesus and how women uses women or how Jesus uses women to be able to minister to the vulnerable and bring about justice in different ways in just different generations in different areas across the planet. And so today I get to invite a sweet friend onto the show that really is no stranger to this work and this movement of caring for the least of these. Christi Haag, thank you so much for joining us on this episode.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we are actual real life friends. We have gotten to share stories and just encourage one another. I know you have been such an encouragement to me, and I've learned so much from you and just your heart for people, your heart for children. And so I'm really, really pumped to be able to share your story and who you are and how God has taken your yes and your obedience to literally the ends of the earth. So why don't we kind of start back at the beginning? Tell me a little bit just about you, where are you recording from, some of the fun get to know you questions.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited to be with you, and I am loving this. I have given this to my daughter-in-laws, to a million people. I've shared it, and it is so good. So thank you. And I love you, Jackie. I respect you as a friend, as a leader. And so it's a joy to be here today. And I really, really appreciate you having me. I am in Lakeland, Florida. As I'm sitting here, I'm looking across the lake, and there's huge gators right across, right across. There's big gators right across the street. And I love being. I live on the One More Child headquarters campus with my sweet man. I am a teacher, a Bible study leader. I get to speak at many things for One More Child. And my husband is the CEO of One More Child for the last 15 years. And we just love being here. It's been an amazing journey to get here. I grew up, my dad actually worked at a what we call a children's home back then, at a campus in the middle of nowhere in South Texas. So I grew up on a ranch in South Texas at a children's home where my sweet daddy was a vice president. And so all my best friends and my little boyfriends, everybody was from the children's home. And then I went to Baylor, Second Bears, and met my sweet, sweet man. We've been married 35 years. We have two awesome grown boys, Ben and Brady. And Jackie, I never knew I could love daughter-in-laws like I love my two girls. They are, just wait. You won't believe it is so much fun. I have three grand dogs. We don't have any grandchildren yet, but I have 3 grand dogs. And, after we went to Baylor and we got married, it was fun because my husband was in the business world, very successful. Jerry's a brilliant man of God. To me, the wisest man on earth, just kind, amazing man. I'm a big fan of my man. And we were in the business world, and he was doing extremely well. And I remember one day we were in Switzerland, actually, and he said, Christi, I think God's calling us into some specific ministry. And I was like, what? I was the one who said, I don't know if you really know, ministry is messy. It is so hard.
Right. Yeah.
It is so hard. And so, because my family, everybody's in the ministry, my family, his family's amazing, loves Jesus, but they weren't full-time ministry. And so for about 6 weeks, really, I put the brakes on things until I surrendered. Praise God. And we jumped into, he had his PhD in finance, and he brought that business acumen into ministry. And for 22, 23 years, he has been president of children's homes and what began as Florida Baptist Orphanage. And now we are One More Child, and we serve. Last year, it was really cool. I'm getting the exact number. I wrote it down in front of me. 236,492 children directly
Wow.
impacted through our ministry. We served over 14 million meals last year. And then we had another 237,000 that we trained in advocacy and in the different 5 areas we work. So it's been a joy. It's the best and the worst job in the world. And we absolutely love it. It's wonderful because we get to see children plucked out of Satan's hand, but it's terrible because we see the depravity of what happens to children. So it's a joy, and I cry all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love even going back, because I think this has kind of been a theme, even in the different women that I've been able to interview this season. But it's so cool to see how God roots down, even from childhood, just these specific passions and desires, and how he kind of orchestrates just different people in their lives and different circumstances to bring about, when they are in adulthood, how they are huge forces to being able to mend that gap or to be a light in the midst of darkness. And so I love how even as a little girl that you are able just to see the need and be able to be a compassionate heart and person to so many, especially even now. And then again, anytime we talk, you are always talking about your kind husband, and the beautiful picture, I think, and we talked about this in our marriage episode, to where you both together, like he does have such of a, like that business mindset and that wisdom. And then he also has the heart, but you are a big, giant part of the heart piece too, and the leadership piece. And so both of you together being able to really put together this ministry and this organization and then help train other leaders. I mean, it's just incredible. So why don't you tell me, I know you give us a little bit of numbers, but I'm curious if there's any more. So I mean, One More Child isn't just in Florida now, it's all across the planet. So tell me a little bit about the scope of, like, everywhere y'all are, where are you touching? What are you doing? Kind of even some of the specifics of your ministry and what y'all are doing to really help mend that gap.
Thank you, Jackie. Yeah, we began, people ask if we started it all the time. Like, no, I'd be as old as Methuselah. It began in 1904, way back. And now we changed our name to One More Child because we're not just Florida. We're not just Baptists. We're all over the world. And so we get to enjoy being really a leader in Christian child welfare all over the world. My sweet man, we just got back from DC, where he even gets to have an influence on legislation, on the federal level. So we really, I boil it down, Jackie, into, we work in 5 main areas, both here in the United States and then in 15 other countries. We're in over 50 locations right now. And, years ago, we were a wonderful children's home who served about 3,000 children. And now the Lord has us just all over the world. And we keep just shaking our heads going, we can't believe he's allowed us this favor, but we're just so grateful. The first area that we work in that, you talk about I'm passionate about, and I probably get teary, and I just want to jump through the screen and beg people to get involved, is anti-child sex trafficking. And y'all, it is a dark, dark place. We, this last month, we were part of rescuing 33 missing children right around us in Florida. And so sex trafficking, lots of people work in sex trafficking. We work in child sex trafficking, which is even another whole arena. And so we work with FBI, Homeland Security, ICE, and we work on a local level, a government level, all over the world. And it, like I said, it's a dark place. And yet I hope we have time in a minute for me to tell you a few stories about that. We work with single mothers. We have an amazing single mothers program where they come in, they live with us for a year. They save 30% of their income, and we just surround them with love and mentoring. And I think it's one of the most successful programs like this in the nation. And we're just very grateful to get to help a lot of, and Geico gives us cars. We just have a really neat single moms ministry. I know you need to just come be with one of our single moms. We work in foster care in Florida. About 10% of Florida's kids are in a One More Child home, a Christian foster home. And I know this is near and dear to your heart. And we get to work all over in foster care. I think last year in all our ministries, we were in 22 states in Florida. Then we get to work in child hunger. And again, I hope I get to tell you a few stories, but that makes my heart pound. There's plenty of food in the world.
Mm.
There's plenty of food in the world. It's just us getting our act together to feed children. I cannot stand to see a hungry child. It's just not right.
Mm.
And then we work in what we call struggling families, where we just help. It's a heavy prevention, trying to help them on this end so we don't take the kids away on the other end. So we have a ton of prevention programs through our compassion centers that we have all over. And so those are like the main areas in the 50 locations in the 15 countries. And we have huge partners, Amazon and Walmart, that help us along the way. So it's the scope is big.
It is really big. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, like walking through each of the 5, and I'm like, really, just one of those is huge and a huge, tremendous weight to even be able to bridge the gap. And like you said, legislation. I mean, there's so many pieces to, I think, being able to rally people together, get the leadership in place to be able to train and meet those needs. And so the fact that you're doing all 5 of those things across different continents and countries is just crazy. But also a testimony of, again, I'm going out on a limb here, but I would think whenever you started and said yes, right? Whenever you both were like, all right, I think God's calling us to something else. I don't think that this was ever the plan. Like, it may have been a pipe dream, but it definitely wasn't what you were expecting that first day on the job, correct?
That is so correct. God has blown us away and just continues to use us. It's our staff. It's not Jerry and I. I mean, it's not us. It's our amazing staff who they are passionate about Jesus, passionate about Jesus. And they're all young and on fire, and we have a huge staff, and they all could be making a lot more money doing other things, but everybody feels called here, and everybody works hard and long hours and are exhausted, but just passionate about what we get to do. So it's a joy. It's a joy.
Yeah. And I love just seeing how that daily surrender of, okay, God, what do you want? And who are the people that you're going to bring? I know you and I specifically talked about even how y'all were expanding over into a city in Tennessee, and you were putting together a team over here. And so it's just incredible to see how God knows what he's doing all the time. And we just have to follow and trust that we don't have to have all of the answers, but he does. And so again, just the scope of everything that God has done through your yeses and through your team is just incredible. So I want to hear some of these stories. So, I mean, out of those 5 categories, I'm just going to open it up to you. Like, tell me how One More Child is able to step into some of the most darkest and honestly discouraging. Like, I think most of us would look at some of these circumstances and just say, this is way too big of a problem. I can't do anything. And so in the midst of darkness, tell us some of the stories of how God is bringing light through y'all's obedience and through your work.
Man, thank you. So on my couch right behind me, there was a month not long ago, I spent a month crying on that couch going, I'm out, Lord, I cannot see this again. Jerry and I both are just pretty overwhelmed. There was one more child sex trafficking story that just about did us in. And so, you have those days you're like, what are we doing? This is too much. And then the Lord just grabs you up and kicks you in the hiney and says, get out there. Jerry always says, I'm not just the voice in his head, I'm the voice in his bed. And we'll lay nose to nose at night, and the Lord will put something on his heart or mine, and I'll say, we're going to answer to Jesus if we don't do this. So, that's the big picture is what God calls you to do. And here lately, I was in Thailand a few weeks ago, and I got a text that there's a girl named Lydia, and we think, best we know, she started being trafficked by her mom at the age of 9, and it was continuous trafficking. She was sex trafficked from the age of 9 until 17. And just imagine the trauma of those years being trafficked by your own family. And then she was rescued and put in one of our homes, and we just bonded. You know how you bond with we have hundreds of thousands of children, but Lydia, I just bonded with her. And then she had some ups and downs, and this amazing foster family, the Wernsings, that took her in. Then at the age of 20, they adopted that sweet child. They adopted her as an adult. And then she texted me a few weeks ago, and I couldn't be at her graduation. She was walking the stage at UCF getting her degree. And we just all cried in the street. And she's going on to get her master's. She's a worship leader at her church. She's in the worship band. So you just think about what Satan meant for harm. God is just, man, flipped it upside down. And Lydia is a force to be reckoned. She sings Lauren Daigle better than Lauren Daigle sings Lauren Daigle. She is, yeah, right? She's amazing. So sex trafficking, man, I have story after story after story of what God's doing. In our hunger, I'm so passionate about hunger. Probably 14 years ago, we work all over the world. We've worked with the past 3 presidents of Guatemala, built 94 homes in Dominican with the president of the Dominican Republic. And those are all different stories. But we were in Guatemala in our malnutrition center there with babies. And this mama literally falls in the door with her child, a little boy named Benito. And he weighed 26 pounds. He was 7 years old and weighed 26 pounds.
Wow.
And you talk about emaciated. And long story short, he passed away. He died from malnutrition. And, Jackie, you see something like that. I went outside in Guatemala at our center. I threw up for 2 hours. I could not stop throwing up. I just had my hands in the air going, Lord, I am in. I am all in. Jerry and I both said, I don't want to see that again. There shouldn't be hungry children like that. There is so much food. And so we got really serious about, distribution and figuring out who needs what. And we get truckloads of food and we distribute. And it's not that hard. And people can get involved. And you see a child starve to death like that, and it literally changes you.
Yeah.
God just, slaps you around. And then like our single moms, there's one single mom on this campus. We have single mom homes all over. And this one mom, Shannon, I love her. She's got twin girls, feisty twin girls, but she was in a marriage that he was just beating her to a pulp all the time. And she wouldn't leave. She didn't know where to go. She didn't know her options. And finally he got put in jail. And the day before he was getting out of jail, she finally said, I'm done. And so she left, but then she ended up, couch surfing. She was on everybody's couch, and she was staying at this one house with her 2 daughters. They were all 3 sleeping on the couch. And the police busted in one night in a drug raid because the rest of the house was a meth lab. And so somebody at Home Depot told Shannon about our single moms program, and she came, and man, you talk about Jesus just upside down. Her life, she is on fire for the Lord, and she's sharing her story with everyone. And so it's just God doing what he does. But we just have to say yes. It's like you said, we've got to decide to be passionate about these things and make a difference.
Yeah. And even as you're talking, I mean, I'm thinking back to chapter 9 and the Hebrew wives and Jael and Dorcas. I mean, like, they were specifically put in a situation around people, and they just chose to be faithful to what they knew of God. And so there's so much that I think that you're talking about, to where I don't know, it's so easy for us, I think, to know cognitively there are needs out there, to know cognitively that there is abuse happening, or that there are kids dying because they don't have enough food. And so we know those things, but it is so easy for us, especially in the West, to just, well, I don't want to think about that, or somebody else is going to figure that out. Somebody else is going to be the answer that they are praying for, those kind of things. And so I think I want to ask you 2 questions. And the first thing is, how do you specifically as a leader, you are consistently saying yes. You're consistently seeing this thing, right in front of your face. And I would imagine there has to be just this tension of like anger, maybe, of why are people not stepping up? And then this also feeling of like, I don't know, not desperation, but also I think just this is never going to go away. And I think it's clear. I think even in Jesus's time, he says, you're always going to have the poor. You're always going to have, these physical needs, which is ultimately why he's given the charge to the church to meet these needs. But at the same time, it's got to feel so overwhelming to be like, there's only so much I can do. There's only so many sleepless nights that I can have, or, like, I think in those moments, what is challenging you to keep going and what's not keeping you from being bitter at the fact that other people are not taking some of the weight off? Like, how does that, especially as a leader, really kind of resonate in your head and heart? How do you fight that?
It's a great, great question. And,
Not on our list. So I'm just throwing it at you.
man, I love that. And there, just recently, and this is the millionth time I've heard this, a child looks at you and says, surely somebody saw me. Surely somebody knew. And you hear that, you see that, and you go, I'm that one. I'm going to see you. God is El Roy, the God who sees us, and he sees every one of those children. And you have a child say that to you. Surely somebody saw me. Surely somebody knew I was being trafficked. Surely. And I'm telling you, you rise up like Talitha Kum. I love your chapter 9. I've highlighted, bookmarked chapter 9 over and over. And this is the chapter I tell everybody about because it's my passion. But Dorcas, when Peter raises her up and he says, Talitha Kum, rise up. And that's what I wanted. I'm just passionate about telling women, everybody can do something. Just even being a prayer warrior, please be a prayer warrior, be an ambassador for a child, figure out what's going on in your area. There are probably some amazing ministries doing work in your area. If not, One More Child wants to be there with you. We'll go anywhere in the US. And so there is that excitement. And there's also that, like you said, that almost righteous anger of please. I feel like I'm begging people all the time, but I don't mind. I don't mind doing it. I'm passionate about it. And I'm unapologetic about asking women, people in general, but I speak to a lot of women, say yes, get them, jump in. And really, once you start getting involved, you're the one who will be blessed. And you'll see a child say, man, you saw me and you did something about it. And their eternities are changed. And so it's so worth it. And I wish I could transfer passion to every person, but I would encourage everybody, just jump in somewhere and get involved and you'll never regret it.
Okay, so let's go real practical here because we're starting to run out of time. And I want to give almost like some handles of, okay, I can sense women listening to this episode and they're like, oh, I need to do something about that, or feeling that prick from the Holy Spirit of like that little nudge of like, hey, she's talking to you specifically right now. We are all talking to you. So let's get really practical on the woman that's listening in her car as she's driving or picking up her kids, or she's listening on her lunch break. Like, what are some practical things that all of us can do just to take that first step? Because I think what happens is we ultimately think, okay, I'm signing up for a trip to Guatemala to go see something that I don't want to see, or that I'm not ready to see. And our minds just kind of jump to the most extreme. So let's kind of lay it out real practically simple. What do those first steps look like? Just the first yes. What do you say?
So good. Thank you. My first thing I would beg you to do is go on onemorechild.org and just see what jumps out at you. See if the Lord is like, we all have different things that just our heart goes, so get on our website and then some very practical things. We can come to you and help you do your own food packing wherever you live. I don't care if you're in a tiny county in Minnesota. We'll come to you. So say with food packing, we have a very streamlined, awesome, some churches do 250,000 meals with us packing. So we'll come to you with a food packing event or program. We can come to you and train you and your church on anti-child sex trafficking. What do you look for? How do you get involved? What's in your area? So let us come to you and help you with that. Let us connect with you on starting your own single moms community program. Anybody can do. There are single moms within feet of you every day. And we have an amazing curriculum and program. We can come to you wherever you are and help you set up your own single moms ministry. And y'all, it is amazing to watch these single moms. They have to save 30% of their income. And there's certain things in these programs and it just works. It works. So you can get involved with anti-child sex trafficking, hunger, with these single moms, foster care. Maybe you're called to foster care. maybe you're not, but you can wrap around somebody who is, and they can be a Christian or a non-Christian. Maybe there's someone in your church who already does foster care. We have what's called foster crew. We'll come in and help you learn how to wrap around those foster parents. You can do meals, you can mow their lawn, you can send them a gift card. There are a million things. And we have those programs to help. We want to connect with you to do those. And so we'll come to you and help you in your area start any of these that prick your heart.
I love that. Well, and I think one of the things that I would add to this, and you even kind of highlighted it with my own heart for foster care and adoption, like we all have stories. And so we all have these parts to where we are able to see how maybe it caused a wound, or maybe it was the exact thing that God used to be able to show us and draw us to him. And so for my own story and having adoption in my personal life and just that sting of abandonment and some of those wrestles, that's the very thing that ended up making it to where we were able to welcome in our son from Ethiopia. And be an advocate for foster care and adoption. And so there's so many things that God is doing in us personally that he is wanting to use to be able to show people his glory and to show people his care. And I love the El Roy passage and Hagar and how he chases her down on the backside of a desert and tells her, I hear you, I see you, I'm talking to you. Like, I want a relationship with you. And there is such a beautiful picture all across scripture of how God is using people to show that he is chasing after them. And so I really want to encourage you as you're listening and as Christi has been talking, like, what are some of those things that God has implanted in your own story? Even if it's hard, even if you wish that it wasn't there, that very thing is the thing that God could really catalyst to be able to show you, hey, let's go chase people. Let's be fishers of men. Let's be one that gives a cold drink and tells them about Jesus. I mean, it's such an incredible opportunity and privilege that God is inviting us in on this mission. And oftentimes we're too scared, or we don't know what that first step is, or we are honestly too scared to see what that yes is going to take us to, that we don't trust him. And so honestly, I think the question today is, what has God done in your own story? And then how are you going to be able to use that to leverage it for the good of others and the glory of God? And that's going to look different for all of us. I love how you also pointed out, like, we're all going to have different passions. Like, we're all going to have different things within our stories because there's so many different needs out there. There's so many different ways that we can fill the gap and show compassion and meet physical and spiritual needs. And so the question is, where is he sending you? And we kind of hit on that a little bit in chapter 11, but maybe you're not there yet. But I really want you to spend some time after this episode. Like, what is he stirring up? Where did it prick a little bit whenever Christi was chatting? And then where is he maybe sending you to be the hands and feet of Jesus? I mean, what a cool opportunity he invites us in, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's amazing. Thank you for having me today.
I'm so glad. Okay, so before we get off, why don't you tell our listeners, how do they connect with you? So I think you said the One More Child website, like give us kind of a spiel, links, anything upcoming that they can maybe kind of be a part of. Give us the One More Child blurb.
Yes. Our website is really good and it has everything on it. It's easy to navigate. So go to One More Child, spelling out onemorechild.org. Pray, ask God, prick your heart, and you can be involved this much, or as much as you want to. But I would say, man, we need your prayers. And I'm unapologetic about finances. Please help us financially. Jump in. I don't mind asking people because I know what it does. And so I would say, go to One More Child. Feel free to call me, talk to me. I'm Christi Haag at Christi.Haag at onemorechild.org. Maybe you want to just ask me something specifically, and I would love to visit with you about that. So get on our website, ask God what you can do, and let us connect with you and be involved. So I can't wait to see what God does with this.
I know, as you're talking, I'm thinking, man, from this episode, I wonder how many more, I don't know what you call them, like chapters or locations or just hubs of One More Child could spread from women saying yes, from women saying, I trust you and I want to meet needs. I want to be a physical representation of the gospel coming after people. I mean, what incredibly, I can't wait. I can't wait to see what God does with our yeses. So ladies, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you pass this episode on to maybe some friends or maybe a person in your small group, and y'all have already kind of talked about these things. I'm like, hey, this is a need that we see in our community. Let's do something. Let's take the first step. So spread this episode out. Trust God. Trust that he wants to chase down people just as he has chased down you. And let's watch and see what he does. So thank you so much for joining me. Christi, thank you again for joining me today at the table. And we will see you next week for another episode. We'll see you then.